Okay, for number 9, you're given this complex number and you want the fourth root of it. Okay, so we do not have a fourth root. I'm sorry, we don't have a complex number. So we have to find r. So r would be the square root of 7 squared, which is 7, and then another square root of 7 squared is 7. So you get r is the square root of 14. And theta is the inverse tan of square root of 7 over negative square root of 7, so the inverse tan of negative 1. And then you look at this, it's this in quadrant 2. So where is tangent negative 1 in quadrant 2? 3 pi over 4. So our function is square root of 14 times cosine of 3 pi over 4 plus I sine of 3 pi over 4. And we want to raise that to the 1/4 power. Okay, and then if you remember how to do that, you have to do it for k equals 0, k equals 1, k equals 2, and k equals 3. So we're going to have to do this 4 times. So let's use the formula to get the base with k, and then we'll put 0, 1, and 2, and 3 in for k. So let's just go for it. This is square root of 14. Okay, wait. Let's start with this right. This would be 14 to the 1/2, and then that's raised to the 1/4. So that's 14 to the 1/8. And then you'll have cosine of 3 pi over 4 plus 2 pi k all over 4 plus I, same thing, sine 3 pi over 4 plus 2 pi k all over 4. Now let's simplify this cosine. We get 14 to the 1/8. And then the cosine 3 pi over 4, you'd have to multiply this by 4 over 4. So that would be 8. So you have, because 2 times 4 is 8, so you would have 8, 9, 10, 11, so you have, 3 pi plus 8 pi k over 4 times 4, okay, plus I sine of 3 pi plus 8 pi k over 16. So we're going to write 16 there. So there's our base with a k in it. So that's going to be like highlighted. Let me circle that, okay? That's what we're going to use for each one of these. So when we go k equals 0, the 8 pi k will go away. So we get 14 to the 1/8 times, by the way, this has got a cosine. I just left that out, sorry. Cosine of 3 pi over 16 plus I sine of 3 pi over 16. Now I'm going to just, since I'm using my calculator, I'm going to go ahead and distribute this on my calculator. So I don't want to write down cosine 3 pi over 16, like calculate that, because I'm going to have to round it. So I'm just going to go for it. Now make sure you're in radians. Okay, make sure your calculator's in radians, because these angles are in radians. So cosine 14 to the 1/8 times cosine of 3 pi over 16 is 1.156 or 1.16, and then sine is 0.77, so plus 0.77i, and that's when k equals 0. So let's get that first thing. Let's say here's the answers. I'm going to put them in purple, okay? 1.16 plus 0.77i. That was for k equals 0. All right, now when k equals 1, I have 14 to the 1/8. And now going back to my yellow formula, I have cosine of 3 pi plus 8 pi. So that's 11 pi over 16 plus I sine 11 pi over 16. So go back, just change the 3 pi to a 11 pi, and you have to add an insert to get an extra digit in there, and I get negative 0.7 from rounding 7, and then for the sign I would get 1.16, so plus 1.16i. That's when k equals 1. So using your calculator kind of makes things go a little faster, obviously. K equals 2 is 14 to the 1/8 times cosine of, okay, now k is 2, so that would be 16. 8 times 2. I'm up in the yellow formula, and it's 3 pi plus 8 pi times 2, which is 16. So that's 19 pi over 16. Plus I, get rid of that, sorry, sine of 19 pi over 16. So just go back up with your calculator, and instead of 11, put in 19, and you should get negative 1.16. Negative 1.16, and go back and put sine in, and you should get negative 0.77. So minus 0.77i. Make sure you can see that's a minus. There wasn't supposed to be a dot in front of that. All right, so there's when k equals 2. Hang on, k equals 2. And I got to do one more. This is for one problem. So we got to do k equals 3. But you have the gist of it, right? I mean, and just doing this cosine. Now 8 times 3, that would 24. So that's 27 pi over 16 plus I sine of 27 pi over 16. So instead of 19, go back and put 27, and you should get 0.77, and go ahead and for sine put in 27, and you should get negative 1.16. 1.16i. That's when k equals 3. So there's our one problem with we did it 4 times, okay, because it was to the 4th power. And the purples are the answers. So one more problem, number 10 for your homework.